Okay, well, hello. Thanks for joining us. My name is Scott Davies, and I'm a tax attorney at Legal Aid at AppalReD Legal Aid. I formerly worked at the IRS's law firm and a tax court. I've been here now 7.5 years. In that time, we've had about 75 cases in the tax court, but most cases are resolved without something like that happening. What we really like to do is be able to do some planning and talk about tax provisions before any kind of audits happen or anything bad. That helps people plan and have good outcomes. Today, we're going to talk about the American Rescue Act. It's really thick, about inch and a half thick government laws, but there's some tax provisions in there that are very helpful, especially for the low-income community. And so we're going to talk about some of those. In order, the stimulus payments that we all have heard so much about, the revised and improved child tax credit, the earned income credit, and Obamacare still exists a little bit, and there's some good news with respect to those tax credits that are used to pay for the health insurance. So I think we'll start though with the stimulus payments because that's where we're getting the most calls, and this is something that's been going on now for approximately a year. The Rescue Act includes a $1,400 stimulus payment, and this is a 2021 tax credit. So the first two payments that we've heard about, the $1,200 payments and the $600 payments, those were 2020 tax year credits. If you haven't received those and you think you're entitled to them, and the statute is very broad as far as who's included. Basically, everyone's included unless you're a non-resident alien or you're not a person, you're a trust or a dependent of someone else. So most people can anticipate these payments. There's some AGI limits. If you make more than 75,000, or a husband and wife together, or two married people together make more than 150,000, then the amount will be reduced eventually to zero as the income goes up. But still, most people would be included in the list of intended beneficiaries of these laws. If you didn't receive the first two payments, what you need to do is make sure you file a 2020 year tax return. There's a line on the Form 1040 now that it didn't used to be there. It's brand new, and you can list the stimulus payment that you anticipated getting but you did not get. And then even if you have no other income or no other reason that you think would be a reason to file a return, you can still file the return to claim the stimulus money. But that's just for the first two payments. So the third payment, the $1,400 payment, is what we're going to be talking about today. That's a 2021 tax credit. So there's no opportunity to claim that on a 2020 tax return. Not everyone's received these payments yet, but just as a quick overview, each individual is entitled to $1,400. So a married couple would be $2,800. And then it's $1,400 for dependents also. So this is the most generous of the three stimulus payments. And, just like the first two, you qualify for a stimulus payment unless you're dependent of someone else, or unless your income as one individual is, if you exceed $75,000 AGI, which is different than income. Your adjusted gross income is your income minus maybe if you've got some self-employment tax, you can deduct some of that, lower your income a little bit. There's a couple of adjustments made, but your basic economic income would be, if it's over 75,000, your stimulus money could go down pretty quickly. If you make over 80, then, or your AGI is over 80, then it would be zero. But for the most part, all of our clients, or nearly all, and most people in Kentucky would be able to benefit from this provision. So a married couple, again, $150,000 AGI, or one person 75,000 or less, you'll get but 1,400 or 2,800, depending if it's one person or a married couple, and then $1,400 for each dependent. And you're entitled to this so long as your income isn't too high, or if you're a non-resident alien, that'll also mean you're not entitled to the money as the law is written. So that includes quite a few people. Now, there are not really too many things you can do to mess this up. It should be automatic, but it's the government, so, and they have to write a lot of checks, so they may overlook someone. But if you haven't filed returns in the past, then you should probably just, that's the easiest way for the IRS to know about you, is if you file returns. And we always encourage people to file a return anyway, because if you're not filing returns, and maybe you don't really have a lot of income, all you have perhaps is Social Security, and by itself wouldn't become taxable, you should still consider filing a return, because we know there's a lot of people that want to work and maybe they don't have the right paperwork to be here to work, so they may buy or be given, furnished somehow, some information off the dark web. And you hear about insurance websites being hacked, all kinds of things, and so your information could get sold at a flea market. We know about some of those. And then someone might use your name, and some employers don't really ask a lot of questions. As long as somebody has a name and a social, the employer won't go beyond that. And so you could have someone working using your name, and then if you don't file a return, you may not find out about it until you've got some real problems. So just to prevent yourself from being a victim of identity theft, you should file a return. But even if that's not enough encouragement, these stimulus payments, the primary way the IRS knows how to reach you would be if you file a return. Now, Social Security information can be used also, but you probably get your stimulus money sooner if you had actually filed returns and the IRS was using your return information to get a hold of you. Okay, so those are the basics on the stimulus money. Not everyone's received them yet, those checks, but if you haven't received the first two, either one or both, then you should file a 2020 tax year return. Again, there's a line on the Form 1040 as it's been revised, and that allows you to claim it, just like if you had with tax withholding at work or something like that, you claim it as a refund, and then they pay it to you as a refund. But the third stimulus payment is a 2021 law, and it's not retroactive, so it's a 2021 tax credit. So if you haven't received it, you could go to the IRS website, which is irs.gov, and they do have a tool that allows you to check to see if it's been paid, but it won't go very far if there's if you need to correct some kind of mistake that's been made somewhere. It probably won't allow you to do that, but at least you can check the status. All right, so I don't see any questions on that, so that's pretty straightforward, so that's good. I guess everyone's used to the stimulus credits now, so we can continue on to the child tax credit provisions. The child tax credit provisions are really great because we know it's very expensive to raise kids. So if you're a moderate income worker, you can receive a tax credit. As originally enacted, it was $1,000, but that's been increased now. And I'm going to show you, I actually prepared a little bit of information ahead of time. So $3,000 for most kids, that's a lot of money, and $3,600 for children under the age of 6. So if you have a brand new newborn, your child tax credit is $3,600, which is absolutely outstanding. Other children, including children age 17, for this year, this is a 1-year deal, $3,000 per child. So this tax credit can be absolutely huge. And it's what they call a refundable tax credit. So that means even if you had no tax, or if you had a very minimal amount of tax, maybe you had, you only worked part of the year, and so you had income of maybe $8,000 or something like that, your tax would be under $1,000. Well, actually, after your standard deduction, you wouldn't have any tax. But despite not having any tax, you still get this tax credit, and it's refundable. So they just give you the money. You can first use it towards any tax you have, and then if there's no tax left, you can get the money refunded to you. So it's really nice. And there are some basics here to keep in mind, though. So I put the tax code section for anyone that's interested. I just think of tax in terms of tax code sections. But you need to have what they call a qualified child. And so that means you have lived with the child for over 6 months or longer than an adverse spouse or an adverse parent. And you have a relationship. So this is the child that generates a child tax credit is your own child or a grandchild, or it could be a niece or a nephew, for example. And you want to have some documentation ahead of time. So if you can get some school records together, some medical records, just if you have an apartment lease, you sign an apartment lease, make sure it lists the children's names if they're going to be living with you. Because if the IRS ever challenges your entitlement to a child tax credit, you will have to show that the child lived with you for longer than anyone else is claiming. If the other parent is claiming the children as well, that sometimes that happens, then the first tiebreaker is going to be who lived with that child the longest period during the year. But you sometimes find cases where the child hasn't lived with one parent at all, and yet that parent is claiming a child tax credit. If that happens, you can still file a return, even if you're second. It's not a first to file rule, but the rule, according to section 152 of the tax code, you need to have a relationship that it specifies. So again, it's your own children, your grandchildren, or a niece or nephew. So in other words, the children of a sibling, that works as well. And then you lived with that child the greatest period of time during the year. And so medical records, school records, things that just happen normally during the course of the year, sign an apartment lease, you could just put that in a folder. You don't have to do anything extra. Just as you live your life during the course of this year, you can just get that stuff together. If you go to the school for some reason, you can get a copy of the school's records, and make sure that it shows your address as the child's address, because sometimes that can change during the course of the year. So you want to make sure that it says that. And I'll tell you, we had one case where I knew the taxpayer very, very well, and I knew she worked at a school. And I thought, oh, this is going to be so easy. I'm going to just go get the school records from that school and case done. Except in that particular school, the record keeper didn't keep records because she didn't know how to use a computer. So the school actually had a school record keeper that didn't keep any records. So you want to, if you have an opportunity to just get school records when you can, or make sure that the records are accurate. That was an extreme example, but that actually happened, and it's still amazing. But those things can happen. So during the course of the year, if you can get some records that just show that the child lives at your address, then, and if you want the child tax credit, then that would be a really good plan. And again, it's $3,000 per child, but $3,600 if the child's really young, under 6 years old. So we're talking about potentially a lot of money. If you've got 2 or 3 kids, you can kind of do the math. That's absolutely outstanding. Now, on top of this extra higher amount that you're getting, $3,000, again, when the statute first was enacted, it was only $1,000, which is still pretty good, but now it's $3,000 or more. It could be $3,600 if the child is young enough. You do need to have a qualified child. So we talked about residence and the relationship that's needed. In addition to this extra benefit with the higher dollar amount, you no longer have any minimum requirement for income. It used to be you needed to have $3,000 or more of income, and under the Trump administration, they lowered that a little bit. Now it's zero. For this year, it's zero. So maybe you haven't been able to claim the child tax credit in the past because you didn't have any income. Now you can claim it with no income at all. You still get the child tax credit so long as you have what they call a qualified child. So if your child is living with you, or it's your grandchild, or even a niece or nephew, and perhaps you are supporting them with Social Security money or something that's not considered earned income, you would still qualify for the child tax credit, at least this year. So this is a really important benefit. And on top of that, there's now going to be an advanced payment. So you don't have to wait till the end of the year to get the money, though. They're going to start paying it in July. Now, these advanced payments, they've never done this before, and it's the IRS. And yesterday when I spoke with some folks at the IRS, not only have they not had any training on this, they don't have any training as of yesterday. They didn't have any training even scheduled. So this may not go as smoothly as we would hope. But the idea is they'll pay about half of the child tax credit in advance during the year. So you'll have monthly income if you've got a qualifying child. So this monthly income, if you've got a child who's under 6 years old, should be $300 a month. If you've got a child between 6 years and say 17 years, then it's $250 a month. Again, this is per child. So this is the monthly income that the government's going to start paying to you. They're supposed to, beginning in July. The IRS commissioner is saying that they will start paying us in July. However, again, I spoke with some folks at the IRS yesterday, and they don't really seem to have a lot of plans on how they're going to do this. Perhaps at the IRS commissioner level, in Washington, there's some folks, I'm sure they're talking about this, but the problem solvers that I work with at the IRS, they don't have any training even scheduled yet. So this could be it could be something that doesn't work as smoothly as we'd like. Some of the things that you can do, again, are to make sure that you have some documentation to the extent that you can get it. This shows that the child lived with you. If you don't have a birth certificate, maybe you lost it, and there may be a charge for it, but it might be worth having, even for other reasons, non-tax reasons later on. It might be good to have a copy of the birth certificate that you can send to the IRS if you need to. So we want to have hopefully a folder or just a spot somewhere at the home where you can keep tax papers that show you're related to the child or the children and that they live with you, just something that shows your address and their name that you didn't create yourself. That could become important later. Also, it'd be a great idea to just make sure all your tax returns are filed, especially 2020 and 2019. According to the IRS employees that I spoke with yesterday, they anticipate looking at the 2020 tax return that was filed, if there is one. And that's how they're going to figure out where to pay a child tax credit, the advance payments. And if there isn't a 2020 return, then they may look at 2019. So those would be good returns that get filed, even if you didn't have any income. Again, it protects you from identity theft as well. You can file a return up until May 17th if you still haven't filed one. There wasn't an extension. So you may check out irs.gov. You could e-file something for free, perhaps, or if you can't get to a computer that can do the free return on the IRS website, we have our number up on the screen. You can call us, and we can try to find a free place for you to go for a tax return prep. We're not tax return preparers ourselves, but we can try to help you find a place that's open. Most of them are only open through April 15th, but I think some are still open until the May 17th deadline comes. So there's still maybe an opportunity for that. But those would be really good ways to make sure that you're set up to get the child tax credit advance payments. Now, the law also asks the IRS and the Treasury Department, the IRS is part of the Treasury Department, to write some regulations. So we'll get some more information as time goes on. Normally, government agencies can write regulations and they're honored so long as they're consistent with what the law says that Congress enacted and the president signed. But when the IRS is specifically invited to write some regulations, those regulations are even stronger. So it's as if new laws are going to be made regarding probably this child tax credit advance payments. I'm sure there's going to be some new language, but I haven't seen it yet. And again, they don't have any training scheduled, at least as of yesterday. So we'll see. Probably is, there's going to be some people who aren't getting the advance payments like they're supposed to. So if that happens, please give us a call. We're happy to help. The tax clinic has been around quite a while. I've personally been here 7.5 years. In my time, we've never charged a fee. So you can get free legal advice or representation in a matter like that. That's a federal tax issue for sure. So we'd love to help if things don't go the way they're supposed to, and they may not. Because this is a brand new program, and training really hasn't even occurred yet. So it may not go as smoothly as we'd like. But you can help yourself in a big way if you can gather some basic documents that show that you live with these children and that you're related to them, in the way that the law requires. Okay, Okay, so we've got a couple of questions here. Is there going to be a third check? Yes, there is. And we're just talking about this a little bit. So the American Rescue Act includes a provision for $1,400 stimulus checks. And pretty much everyone qualifies for that so long as the adjusted gross income is not in excess of $75,000. If it is over $75,000, the $1,400 goes down really, really fast until you get to about $80,000 adjusted gross income, and then it's zero. So long as your income isn't beyond those numbers, or you can double that if you're filing with a spouse, then you'll receive the stimulus money. The one caveat to that is you do need to be a citizen, or at least a resident alien. A non-resident alien, or someone you might think of as an undocumented person, would not qualify. But we're talking about most people in the country qualifying for those stimulus payments, and it's $1,400 per person, including dependents. So, 2 adults who are married and 2 children that are dependents of those adults, that's $1,400 times 4. So you should get $4,800 to do that right now. 1,400. I knew I should have prepared that better. 5,600 is even better. $5,600 is what you should get. Now, they're going to look at your 2020 tax return first to get your information. That's how the IRS knows about you primarily, but they can get it from Social Security if you didn't file returns. And they'll look at 2019 if you don't have a 2020 return. So if you haven't filed returns, it'd be a really good idea you get the money sooner if the IRS can look at its own records. And so if you haven't received a third payment yet, there's not a lot of remedies because it's a 2021 tax credit. Again, for the first 2 payments, if you haven't received those, you can file a 2020 tax return and make a formal claim for your refund. But this third payment is a 2021 tax credit. So, the government's trying to pay them sooner rather than later, but it could come to you needing to file a 2021 tax return, which is a year from now. But you can go to the IRS website. They have a tool, and that'll just at least tell you the status of your stimulus payment. And that won't really help you do a lot of problem solving, though. So the main thing you can do right now is just make sure that you file returns for the last 2 years. If you haven't received the stimulus payment, that might be a really good plan. You can free file a return. Most people can through irs.gov. And I think it takes you to some software provider. It's not, the IRS doesn't make the software itself, but they'll provide you a link, and presumably the IRS knows about these companies and what the information, what you're going to encounter if you use one of these free services. If for some reason you're not able to use irs.gov and do a free file, then you can call us at the number on the screen, and we'll try to find a free preparer for you. It's pretty late in the game, and there's not many preparers still preparing returns for free, but we could try to find one for you. You may need to drive beyond where you would normally have to drive, but generally speaking, some of the libraries in each county in Kentucky are really good resources and for information in general, but in particular, free tax prep is something that happens at a lot of those libraries. So you can maybe check with the library too, and find some preparers in that way. So I think that answers our first 2 questions. Again, we just this third payment, the $1,400 payment, there aren't really a lot of remedies just for the government not paying it as quickly as we'd like. But if it came to it, you could file a tax return next year for 2021 and claim it there, just like you can do now for the first 2 payments. But perhaps by filing older returns, 2020 and 2019, they'll at least have your information and be able to pay you. Okay, now going back to the child tax credit, there's going to be a portal, and you can correct some basic problems through this portal, or at least it's envisioned that that's what's going to happen. The portal doesn't exist yet. It's supposed to go live in July, about the same time the IRS is supposed to start making these advanced payments on the child tax credit. And the portal is supposed to allow you to change your address or your bank information, or at least your address. If sometimes people move, but some of the folks that I spoke with the IRS yesterday said that you should be able to change your bank information as well. We have clients who, for one reason or another, they change bank accounts quite often, and you may have changed your bank account since the last time you filed a return. So if you anticipate qualifying for one of these child tax credits, or the advanced payments, that's going to start happening in July. So it's a $250 a month payment or a $300 a month payment. If you've changed your bank account information, you definitely want to go on the portal and get that fixed. But the portal doesn't exist yet today, so it's just something you need to know about. It will become active in July, but it doesn't exist yet. All right. Okay, so there's a question: can we help with previous tax years? Yes, we have. When I first started, we had people coming in with problems dating back to the 1980s. And I just got a refund for a client from 1998. That's a long time ago. But she was due a $15,000 refund, and then so she got that, but then the interest was $33,000. So a bit of a unusual savings plan as well. So there was actually 2 tax years, so she'll get about $60,000 from the IRS. So we can we can go back, if there's a tax controversy is what we were looking for, a federal tax controversy. So, if it goes back several years or in some cases 20 years, we can address, that matter. Okay. So I think that wraps up those questions. Okay. So, and again, with the child tax credit, the IRS has been invited by Congress to write some regulations, and that kind of regulation is basically has the force of a statute. Once in a while, you can have a regulation overturned, but when Congress authorizes the IRS to write the rules, then that's a pretty strong rule, and it's probably going to be something we plan on and plan around. But this is still pretty new, and so they just don't really seem to have a lot of guidance yet. And again, there'll be a portal for the child tax credit at the IRS website, irs.gov, and you can change your bank account information, probably your address, and things like that if you've moved. Okay. So the third provision then that I'm going to mention is the earned income credit. Now, the earned income credit is also, like the child tax credit, it's a refundable tax credit, and this helps low-income workers in particular. So normally the earned income credit is supersized if you've got children, and if you're a childless worker, it doesn't get a lot of attention because the refunds aren't that big, but they do exist. And just as an example, when I was in law school, I had a little tutoring business, and I would help the other law students with their tax problems and a couple other courses. And so I would make maybe $1,500 or something like that, maybe a little more, by the end of the year. So I was really a low income worker at that time, and I would qualify for the earned income credit. And it could be a few $100s just for free. So, you don't have to pay any tax on that income other than maybe a little bit of self-employment tax, but you get this nice bonus. So the earned income credit can encourage lower income workers to go out and, try working. And now for single workers, people that don't claim children, the earned income credit is tripled. So that's huge. So if you would have had a $500 earned income credit, it will now be $1,500. That's very significant. And we have a lot of, I can't tell how many people come in for some other reason, sometimes not even a tax reason, but I meet them in the lobby and I just start talking to them. And the last couple of years, they didn't file a tax return. And maybe they worked at like a temp service, and they only made $2,000 or $3,000, and I thought, well, I don't have to file a return. And maybe the IRS doesn't care, but the thing is, that the payroll lady probably took some money out of your check, and so you file a return, you can get that money back, and on top of that, the earned income credit. So people who hadn't filed a return, they weren't even thinking about it. Very often we can help them get a $600 refund, or sometimes $1,000 or more. And they didn't even know this money was available to them. But now this earned income credit is 3 times what it used to be. So at least for 1 year. So that's a big bonus. And on top of that, folks who are over 65, if they didn't have any grandchildren or children that they were claiming the earned income credit for, they were denied the earned income credit. I think that's a very unfortunate rule, because we have older workers that we work, that we represent, and they've been denied the earned income credit, unless they had, typically if they had grandchildren, that'd be the only way to get it. But for this year, if you're 65 or older and maybe you're working part-time somewhere, you can still get the earned income credit. So that'd be a nice bonus. And it's a triple earned income credit. So it's really nice. You hadn't qualified for it before because of that rule on the age limit, but now you can get it, and it's 3 times what it would have been. So so that's really exciting for our low-income workers, and we'd like to get the message out. If you know someone, especially an older person, maybe they haven't filed returns because, you know, for one reason or another, they didn't think it was worth it. You know, they're not going to qualify for this earned income credit, and that's a significant extra bonus that a lot of people may not know about. It really hasn't been on the news very much. And okay, so no new, okay. And then the fourth sort of tax provision that I want to mention is Obamacare still exists. There's no longer a penalty if you don't have insurance, so that got rid of some of the bad stuff. But you know, if you want to use tax credits, you know, the IRS will pay for kind of a basic health insurance plan for you. Now, the danger of using these advanced tax credits to pay for your health insurance is if your income goes over, you know, leave it to lawyers and politicians to make this so complicated, but if your income, you start off in January as a very low income worker, but then your income by the end of the year, because maybe you found different employment, is over 400% of the poverty level, you would have to pay back your tax credits that you use to pay for health insurance. And you know, if you get this new job in August or something, you're happy, and we should, you know, we want to encourage you to, you know, make the most of your time and effort, you know, going to work. But when you file that tax return, sometimes you find out now you have to pay back all of the healthcare premiums that you used for the Obamacare insurance. For this year, under this new law, the American Rescue Act, you won't have to repay the tax credits. We only have maybe 1 or 2 of these cases a year, but when it happens, it really hurts. I mean, because health insurance is expensive, very expensive, and you know, you may have to pay back $7,000 or $8,000 if your income went over that 400% threshold. So this is going to really save some people who don't even know right now that they're going to be saved at the end of the year by this provision. But so I think it's worth mentioning that you won't have to repay those tax credits that you're using for health insurance for this year. Okay, so those are the major, you know, tax provisions in the American Rescue Act. Again, the stimulus payments, we have a third one, $1,400, and that includes your dependents as well. And then the child tax credit, which is increased to $3,000 for most kids. But if you've got a really little one, you know, under 6 years of age, then that tax credit is going to be $3,600. And even better, you're going to get, beginning in July, hopefully things work smoothly, you know, you're going to get a monthly payment from the IRS. And it's going to be $250 for most of the kids, but $300 a month for the little ones. And that's per child. And so that could be a really nice benefit for, especially for single parents. Yeah, I mean, so you don't have to wait till the end of the year, you know, you'll get this monthly payment. And then we have the earned income credit, which has been tripled. So that's a really great benefit, especially for our older workers. And then no obligation this one time around to repay the health insurance you might have used for the affordable health care. So, okay, I think we've covered most of the major provisions. And again, if you've got some questions, you may, I think we'll leave this Facebook presentation up for a while. And because I know when we did it before, we would have folks coming in later to watch it. You can give us a call if you've got a tax controversy, even if it's not one of these 4 areas. we do lots of things related to tax. Give us a call. We have our intake line on the screen here, and since I've been here, we've never charged anyone any money. That's typically what AppalReD does. We help you with tax problems or other kinds of issues that the other attorneys handle, and we want to try to make things better for you. And you don't have to necessarily wait for a problem with tax. If you just want to talk about a situation, we can help maybe guide you through something. And so I thank you for for watching the video, and hopefully we'll make another one maybe later this year. Thank you.
Legal aid provides assistance to people who don't have the money to hire an attorney to help them present their case. When we recite the Pledge of Allegiance, we end with, "and justice for all." And that's what legal aid does. Legal aid helps make that promise a reality in the United States, so that justice is for all and not just for the few who can afford it.
There's no way in the world I could have afforded to get legal representation if I had to pay. And so, when you get the type of representation that I got, and it's a nonprofit organization, I don't really know if there's any words that can describe how much that means to a woman coming out of an abusive relationship with 2 children. Can you really put a price on your and your children's safety? And so I'm just really grateful.
She had filed this domestic violence petition alleging that her now ex-husband had followed her state to state. And so she had moved to Kentucky for a support system, and he showed up randomly. And that's when she became terrified because of the history of domestic violence.
I've had to go to court many times by myself, and the anxiety and the paranoia and just the physical illness that you feel, terrified that you no one should ever have to go into a courtroom without representation. No one. We don't know all the legal mumbo jumbo. There's times when I was in court with her where we got out of court and I was like, what? And she's had to explain to me, what was said, because when you get into all that legal talk, for someone like me, you're speaking alien.
I feel like it makes the community better because we're able to go to court and hold people accountable and ensure that the justice system is a little more fair.
I remember after I sat down with her for the first time and just did a consult, I cried for about an hour in my car down the road. Because I don't want to get emotional. It was the first time somebody cared. It was the first time I had like a beacon of hope.
You are entitled to an attorney in criminal cases. Unfortunately, that does not spread to civil cases. So it can be very scary for someone to encounter one of these lawsuits and know that they have no right to counsel.
My husband ended up having emergency heart surgery, and they was not sure if he would survive or not. So I ended up halfway through my mortgage, and then the mortgage company decided that I would not re-qualify for the balance of my mortgage. So I started making phone calls to get help to not lose my home. This was my inheritance, was this piece of property. I feel like it's my heritage, and they were going to take it away from me. It doesn't give them a right, because they have more money than me, to come after me. And people don't have a recourse. People feel that I did not feel that I had a recourse at the time. I could not afford to pay thousands of dollars out in an attorney. I'm trying to save my house. If I can't pay the house, I can't pay a big high-dollar attorney bill. So then we started a bankruptcy proceeding, which stopped them from coming. In the meantime, while I was in this proceeding, though, the mortgage company sent a person out here to my home while my husband still had stitches in his chest to put a lock on the house. And I did not even have a court order. And I said, get off my property. When my grown children stepped up and helped, and if we hadn't had them, I couldn't have made it by myself. Between them and AppalReD, the good Lord above, that's what saved us.
My 21st birthday, I landed on Eglin Air Force Base. So I served 4 years active duty there on Eglin. I traveled all over the United States, and I got to do one tour in Saudi, 129 days. I don't particularly care for that one, but it gave me experience. In 1999, I had my son, and I decided to not renew my contract with the Air Force, and so in December of 1999, I got out, came back home. I had to have a surgery, and so I had to take some time off work and couldn't do a whole lot there for a while, so I got behind on financial matters, the Jeep being one. Actually, it was 14 days past the due date, and he took my vehicle. I called the police, first of all, and then as they were talking to me, and they said, well, is it financed? And I said, well, yeah, but I mean, it's not 30 days late. He agreed to take my payment, and nowhere in my imagination did I think that he had took my car. So they checked into it, and sure enough, it had been repossessed illegally.
When I talked to the man who owned the car dealership, I didn't say anything to him really other than this is the law.
She was something, let me tell you. She didn't let him mow her or plow over her like he did me.
So I'm always happy to sometimes explain the law to a car dealer if I need to, and that day I think he heard me loud and clear, so we were glad.
The day we signed the contract and I drove off in my Jeep, it was like, I know it's not the most beautiful vehicle, but to me it is, because it was a battle getting it back. I only have 2 more payments. I will have the title free and clear on my Jeep, which is wonderful to me.
The need for our services in our community is overwhelming, and unfortunately, based on the resources that we have, it's not uncommon that we have to turn people away for services.
People go into court, face the loss of their home, maybe the loss of income, the loss of custody of a child, maybe the loss of health coverage, any variety of very important and life-changing interests that are at stake. And anybody with money would never face those kinds of issues without an attorney. One of the things that drew me to legal aid was the opportunity to work for the powerless, for the forgotten, for those who have no one else to stand with them. And we at Legal Aid, we are there to stand with those people who have no one else. And I continue after 20 years of doing this to be so proud to be a part of this legal aid community that does so much every day for people when they face these kinds of problems without lawyers.